The field here at Gates Park, the home of Port Coquitlam softball, obviously soccer, baseball played here. Get to the arenas, it's the home of sports. And that was the home for Jon Baillie. That was pretty much it. Whether he was umping or he was reffing or he was organizing, he was giving back to this city. And that's why Jon Baillie is going into the Sports Hall of Fame. He lived the right way in giving back. And as his family says, that's all he knew.
Jon was a giver from day one. When he got on the fire department, if they needed volunteers for something, it was a yes. And then before we had children, our neighbor needed some help with his daughter's softball team and said, "Do you think you could come down and give me a hand? I can't get any parents." Yep, off he went. And then we had our own children, and it just followed through.
My dad used to coach before I was born. He coached women's softball. So my very first memory, one of my first memories, is sitting in the back of his blue Ford pickup truck, in the bed of the truck, because that's how we traveled around in those days, because Poco was barely anything back then. Sitting in the back with my little brother in my lap, with all the girls in the back of the truck, and he would drive from the field and he would drive them over to the Tasty Freeze for like a 10-cent cone or 25-cent pick-a-pop. So that's one of my most earliest memories of loving sport and loving coaching and loving that interaction with the athletes.
We were always the first ones there and the last ones to leave because he was my coach. But we would drive around Mary Hill picking up every player that needed a ride. He would bring snacks in case anybody hadn't eaten yet. So when you're there that early, you might as well help out with the team that's on the ice before you are. If you're there watching your brother play and there's kids somewhere else, then you might as well do some paperwork to help out with the association or pitch in and help coach the younger kids that are on the other side or on the other rink or on the other field. So you might as well give back and do something rather than sit and watch.
He just did it because that's just the way he was.
Everybody knew my dad, and my dad was actually very big in umpiring. So if you were to go back and ask anybody that played with me, or mostly played with Melanie as well, about Jon Baillie, they'd be like, "Oh, he's the umpire." And my dad used to smoke cigars. He would never light them. He used to have these big White Owl cigars, right? And so they would know, "Oh yeah, no, that's Mr. Baillie. Oh, that's Mr. Baillie, and we better be respectful, and we're all gonna get kicked out, and the whole 9 yards. If you're not, you know, you gotta play by the rules, and you gotta be respectful to the referees and the coaches and everybody, and that was a big thing.
I don't know where he got his energy from. He used to tire me out just watching him go, go, go. Even when he was very ill, he went to Alaska to set up the World Winter Games for Special Olympics.
He was everywhere, and he was the loudest guy in the room. If he was in the rink, you knew it.
I think back sometimes to Special Olympics. The Olympians, they loved him. I know we walked into a tournament and they just beam and they would yell, "Jon, Jon," and they would hug him, and he had so much respect for them. He was so kind. And that's one of my better memories for sure. And we would, when a good friend, Sohan Gill, was involved with WLA, and he phoned Jon and he said, "Oh man, I need some help. We need a commissioner for the WLA, for the Adirondacks." "Oh yeah, okay, I'll do it, no problem." "Well then, could you do this? Could you, okay, fine, we'd do that." We'd go to the lacrosse games, especially in New Westminster, and the Special Olympians were there, and they'd see him come in the door and they would just break out in a smile and just be so happy to see him. And that must have made him, well, it did make him feel good.
He was such a big tour de force. I was talking with my kids about that today. He was like a big linchpin of it all, right? Like a fulcrum point where people just gravitate that way. He just made it so enjoyable and so fun, and he made you want to be better and play harder and work harder and try this.
If Jon was alive today, he would be so proud of the three kids, Michelle, David, and Melanie, for what they've accomplished and what they will continue to accomplish. I think his greatest pleasure, if he had lived, would be his 8 grandchildren that he never got
Because you know he would be there.
Yeah.
He would be there coaching or something, right?
Oh man, he would be there. He would have been tossed off the field a few times, I'm sure, because he was never quiet. That's for sure. I don't know. I like to think we brought the kids up to give back.
As large as he was and as loud as he was and how everywhere he was a pretty humble guy. I think he would take it to heart, but very shy about it.
Oh, he would be tickled pink by this. It wouldn't be something he would ever expect at all, but he would be super proud to know that all of his grandkids and all the kids and now adults whose lives that he touched, and there were many, many, he'd be super proud that they'll be able to go through the Port Coquitlam Rec Complex, our beautiful new complex, and be able to see that and bring that up and call that up. And when my brother comes down from the north, he can bring my nieces and he can be like, look, this is Grandpa John. This is what he did for our community, for all of our sports.